Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a new session. So, we're back again with a new exam practice session for the upcoming UP-PSC exam. We have already had 3 sessions for this. In case you have missed those sessions, you can always go to the live section of our Vallath YouTube channel, and there you will see all these videos lined up on UP-PSC. All right, so welcome again. And now let's get started with our session. And I would request you all to please like it once. Okay, all right. I believe my screen is visible to you all. Yes, it's visible. So welcome again to our UP-PSC exam practice session number 4. Are you all excited to practice some more questions, some new questions today? Okay, welcome. Good evening. Now, let's get started, shall we? Let's move on to the first question for tonight. Here we go. Yes. Yeah. In the opening stanza of the canonization by John Donne, the poet uses a series of imperatives to dismiss the listener. A series of imperatives to dismiss the listener. What is the implied plague bill that the speaker claims his love has not affected? Tell me, what is it? A list of ships sunk in war. So does the plague bill refer to a list of ships sunk in war? No. A list of people deceased from the plague. That's correct. So here plague has been written as plague. So in the opening stanzas of the canonization, John Donne uses imperatives to tell a critical observer to focus on their own life, like wealth, studies, or royal favor, rather than interfering in his love affair. Here, the implied plague bill or plague bill refers to the bills of mortality, which were weekly lists of deaths from the plague issued in London. So plague bill means a list of people who died from London in contemporary, a list of people who died from plague in contemporary London. That's what this phrase talks about in the opening of the poem, The Canonization. He tells the listener that focus on your own life. Don't interfere in my love affair. And here plague bill means the list of the people who died from plague in contemporary London. Okay, such textual questions can easily come in the exam. All right, so please make sure that you read the poems really well. Okay, right. Next, in the opening lines of an introduction, Kamala Das lists political figures to establish a connection between her personal voice and national identity. Who does she mention first in an ironic juxtaposition to her lack of interest in partisan politics? Is it Gandhi, Nehru, Mahatma Gandhi, or Sarojini Naidu? Whom does she mention? An introduction. It's a confessional poem. An introduction. An introduction. It's a confessional poem by the Indian poet Kamala Das. And in the opening lines of the poem, she mentions Jawaharlal Nehru. She mentions Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, right, very good. Next. Are you all following? Tell me. Okay. According to T.S. Eliot, what is the historical sense which a poet must possess? So it's a question from T.S. Eliot's critical essay, Tradition and the Individual Talent, published in 1919. Here, what does Eliot mean by the phrase historical sense that a poet must possess according to him? A conscious knowledge of the factual dates and events of the past. As far as we know about Eliot, Eliot would never talk about dry factual dates. So wrong. The ability to write in style of poets from previous centuries, not completely correct. A perception of the pastness of the past as well as its presence, yes. Because according to T.S. Eliot, as he has discussed in his essay, Tradition and the Individual Talent, published in 1919, that the historical sense, it's a crucial awareness involving not only the pastness of the past, but also of its presence. It requires a poet to write with a feeling that all literature, from Homer to their own time, constitutes a simultaneous order. And any poet should be aware of that order, of that tradition, of that continuity. Okay, right. Next. Matthew Arnold. Now we have a question from Matthew Arnold's lyric poem, Dover Beach. Matthew Arnold's lyric poem, Dover Beach. So Matthew Arnold mentions Sophocles in Dover Beach to suggest what? What is the reason behind this allusion to Sophocles? What is it trying to suggest through this figure of Sophocles? That Greek literature was superior to Victorian literature? No, he doesn't mention that. Does he mean that the sea has always been a place of danger? No, not at all. Does it mean that human suffering is an eternal, repetitive aspect of existence? Yes. The cyclical nature of history. Right? In Dover Beach, Matthew Arnold mentions Sophocles to suggest that the turbid ebb and flow of human misery is a timeless, universal experience that has persisted across centuries from the ancient Greek times to the modern world. And this allusion to Sophocles links the Victorian crisis of faith to historical, constant, existential suffering. The sufferings which Sophocles had witnessed. He means that the sufferings of man, the pains of man, which Sophocles had witnessed in classical Greece. Those pains, those sufferings have been continuing all these decades. These pains, these sufferings have been continuing for all these decades. Nothing has changed much. Okay, so this suffering is a constant. Next, Arthur Miller originally titled his play Death of a Salesman as The Inside of His Head. So this was the initial title of the play Death of a Salesman. Which dramatic technique did he employ to transition from his initial concept into the final play? Is it the use of a Greek chorus to narrate Willy's memories? No. No, right? The use of a silent narrator who speaks only to the audience? Wrong. A strictly linear narrative? Absolutely wrong. Or is it the blending of realistic present day scenes with impressionistic non-linear memories? Yes. Right? Arthur Miller transitioned from his initial concept of the inside of his head to the final play Death of a Salesman by employing a blend of expressionism and mobile subjective realism. Rather than linear storytelling, he structured the play through stream of consciousness, where Willy Loman's memories and fantasies erupt into the present, allowing the audience to see into his mind, to take a sneak peek into his tortured, troubled psyche. Okay, this technique is a deliberate strategy to give the audience a sneak peek into his troubled psyche, into the troubled psyche of Willy Loman, the salesman. Clear? And please remember, this play, A Death of a Salesman, was first performed in the year 1949. This play was first performed in the year 1949. The years can be important. All right, next. Flaubert famously sought le mot juste, that is the right word. When translating Madame Bovary, what poses the greatest challenge to maintaining this aesthetic according to translation critiques? Now we have a question from translation studies. Okay. Yes. So what would be the answer? Tell me. The overwhelming number of romantic cliches used by Emma? No. Is it the need to replicate the precise cadence and rhythmic prose style in a target language? Is that the greatest challenge that critics face when working on the translation of this work? Yes. It is the need to replicate the precise cadenced and rhythmic prose style in a target language. Right? Yes. So, according to translation critics and translators, the greatest challenge to maintaining Flaubert's aesthetic of le mot juste, the right word, in Madame Bovary is recreating the precise, almost musical rhythm of his prose while avoiding the temptation to improve or over embellish his meticulously pruned language. Flaubert's style is characterized by a ruthless pruning of unnecessary words, seeking a perfect, often cold, objective fit between words and ideas. And this is the challenge that translators face when translating his novel, Madame Bovary, to reach that exact preciseness, to reach that exact objectivity. All right? Okay. Next. According to the narrator, the love laws in the God of Small Things lay down who should be loved and how much. Which of the following best describes the structural significance of these laws? Now we have a question from a very, very important work. The God of Small Things, an award-winning novel by Arundhati Roy. In this novel, we know that we get to read about these love laws in Ayamanam of Kerala. So, which statement here describes the structural significance of these love laws? That they're explicitly enacted by the state government of Kerala to maintain caste purity? No. They're ancient, unchanging tenets of Syrian Christian faith that Ammu defies? Again, no. They're informal social norms that when broken by Ammu and Vallath, they trigger the destruction of the family unit. Yes. So the love laws in Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things function as an invisible, rigid foundation that dictates social order, caste boundaries, and appropriate behavior. And they act as the structural apparatus that governs who is permitted to love and who must be punished. So these are like invisible rules. These are like ideologies which dictate the lives of people, even at the very structural levels. Okay, got it? Very good. Next. Now we have epithalamion. Epithalamion. It means spousal verse, means marriage song. We know that Epithalamion was written by Edmund Spenser to celebrate his marriage with his lady love, Elizabeth Boyle. Right? Right? Epithalamion was written by Spenser to celebrate his marriage with his lady love, Elizabeth Boyle. So in this work, Spenser invokes the muses to help him sing his bride. Which classical figure does he call upon to assist in bringing goodly fere or mate for the night? Is it Hymen, Phoebus, Venus, or Lucian? It's a textual question again, and they can ask you these types of questions, right? Because it's a text heavy syllabus, they will expect you to look up these texts in details. So in Epithalamion, Spencer invokes the muses to help him sing his bride. So he calls upon Venus. He calls upon Venus. Okay, right. So yes, our NTNet 1 month crash course is going on right now. We are intensively revising both papers 1 and 2. We are doing quizzes, model tests, polls, everything. And if you're planning to sit for this exam, this course will really help you. So you can join us. Okay, right. Let's move on to the next question. Which of the following best describes the structural and stylistic approach of Robert Frost in Mending Wall? A strict sonnet form? I don't think so, no. It is not a strict sonnet form, no. Free verse focusing on the chaos of nature, blank verse that uses conventional tone, or a dramatic monologue. It is blank verse that uses conversational tone to explore the tension between tradition and inquiry. Right? The structural and stylistic approach of Frost in Mending Wall is best described as a dramatic narrative written in conversational blank verse, unrhymed iambic pentameter presented as a single continuous stanza. Okay, so it is using blank verse, conversational blank verse. Okay, right. Thomas Hardy, often uses the technique of ironic juxtaposition. Thomas Hardy. He uses the technique of ironic juxtaposition to emphasize the hostility of fate. Hostility of fate. Which of the following scenes best illustrate this hostility of faith from the novel Tess? From the novel Tess, right? Is it Tess working at Talbot's dairy? No, it is not hostility of fate. Is it Tess sleepwalking with Angel Clare? No. Is it the scene where Tess writes to Angel and it falls behind the chest of drawers? Yes. This shows hostility of fate. So, based on Thomas Hardy's common use of ironic juxtaposition to illustrate the hostility of fate, the scene that best exemplifies this is Tessa's letter to Angel Clare slipping under the carpet rather than into the rug. So it shows that, okay, fate was against her. Fate was against her. Right? Yes. Okay, next. Now we have a question from Milton's Paradise Lost, Book 1. What though the field be lost? All is not lost. This famous defiance is spoken by Satan to Beelzebub. So Satan says this to Beelzebub in Book 1 of Paradise Lost. What is the immediate context of this speech in Book 1? Satan looking at the smoking lake, Satan rising from the burning myrrh, Satan rallying the fallen angels, or Satan observing the construction of pandemonium? It will be what? Satan rising from the burning myrrh. In Book 1 of Paradise Lost, Satan speaks these lines to Beelzebub immediately after they have been defeated in the war in heaven and cast into the burning lake of hell. And this defiance is a desperate attempt to rally his second in command, focusing on their unconquerable will and immortal hate rather than their physical destruction. So as soon as they rise, as soon as Satan rises from the burning mall, he says this to Beelzebub, his second in command. Okay. According to Ariel in Canto 1 of The Rape of the Lock, what happens to women who reject the soft addresses of the gallant and refuse to indulge in vanity? This is a question from Alexander Pope's The Rape of the Lock. Tell me. They remain virtuous forever. They become nymphs. They turn into prudes. They are destined for a life of poverty. They turn into prudes and eventually into ghosts or giddy frights. According to Ariel, in Alexander Pope's The Rape of the Lock, women who reject the soft addresses of the gallant and refuse to indulge in vanity, they are specifically described as prudes or those who affect a false, rigid modesty. They have their souls sink down into the earth to become gnomes. Okay, right. Last question for today. I hope all of you have liked the session. Yes? Okay. W.H. Auden makes a significant, often misinterpreted claim about poetry in section 2 of In Memory of W.B. Yeats. He says, for poetry makes nothing happen. Which of the following best reflects the complete critical interpretation within the context of the poem? It's a very important quote, so tell me. It means poetry is a passive, subjective way of happening rather than an active, direct political force. Right? Here, the complete critical interpretation of Audence's claim in section 2 of In Memory of W.B. Yeats is that while poetry cannot directly initiate political or historical change, it survives as a mode of expression, a vital, enduring, and communicative way of happening that shapes human consciousness and maintains emotional truth in the valley of its making. They can quote lines from poems and then they might ask you to choose the correct interpretations of these lines. That's a possible way of asking questions in PSC exams specifically. They can quote various lines from novels and poems and essays, and then they might ask you to choose or select the correct interpretations of these lines to check if you are accustomed to the background study of these works as well. If you know how to interpret poems, if you know how to read novels, plays, essays, they will check your understanding capacity, right? Okay, then. So that's all for tonight from our side. I hope you guys love the session. I hope you enjoyed answering these questions. And since it's the weekend already, we will see each other again on Monday at 9:30 p.m. Till then, please take care. Keep studying. Okay. And if you want, you can join our NTNet 1-month crash course. Okay. So keep studying. Take care of yourself. And we'll see you all again on Monday. Okay. Bye. Good night.